This is Getting Past Subtitles. My name is Sean Peel.
I'm DK Lee.
And welcome to the third?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. Third episode of our retrospective to Hou Hsiao-hsien. Did I say it right?
Sure, don't ask me.
I
I think it's Hou Hsiao-hsien.
Is it who?
I don't know. Who? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know, but
I think I'm pretty sure. We'll just go. I'm doubling down. I think I said it.
we'll see.
60% of the Ray, and I'm happy with that. Yeah, we're doing a retrospective. We're kind of going in reverse order. So we did his last film at the beginning, and we were trickling our way down his career, and we are in the year 1989 now, away from the 2000s, so a little older. And this week we watched we watched Goodbye, South Goodbye, which came out in 1996, my bad. And so, yeah, not too long after Millennium Mambo, which was 01, right?
Yep.
And not too similar, but vaguely similar. Like, the world of the film is around the same. Like, it's still kind of like in the crime sort of...
Contemporary Taiwan.
Yeah. Underground kind of scene.
Like the youth and kind of younger generation.
Right.
That kind of...
Although, this movie is a little less on, like, the youth part, right? Like,
I mean,
surely
Laddie is pretty young. His girlfriend's pretty young.
Yeah.
You know.
but it's not much about their life as it is intertwined with Gao's, right?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like all of them, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they're just kind of, they're brothers and,
Mhm.
all that stuff going on.
Right. So it's a little different, but kind of in the same sphere as that.
Mm.
I don't know. How did you? I think to kick it off, like compared to Millennium Mambo, and to watching Goodbye South Goodbye.
Watching it backwards, it really, it's an interesting way of doing things since it feels like, from what I've been watching, that the movies get better as they go on. But we've only watched 3 so far. But my favorite actually is The Assassin.
Yeah.
And then I think Millennium Mambo is, I think in certain ways more polished.
Yes.
If I can say that, of a movie in terms of just like it's more coherent. It kind of has a pacing that's a bit more conventional, I would say. And I don't think it's necessarily like a good or bad thing, but I think that this movie, Goodbye South Goodbye, definitely has a more loose feel to it in terms of its pacing and the way that it
like
moves.
sequencing.
Yeah, the way that it moves forward. But interestingly enough, this movie had a lot more dynamic camera movements, which is quite interesting to see in relation to Millennium Mambo and The Assassin. I feel like he put some restraints on his later movies than this movie, which is quite interesting. The subject matter of this movie is like, basically it's about like these low life gangsters trying to make it. That's kind of the gist of what the movie is.
What all gangsters want.
Yeah.
It's kind of
But it was interesting that he basically subverted the whole genre of gangster movies in the way that he portrays the gangsters and the things that they do and how they are portrayed. Because oftentimes in gangster movies, gangsters are kind of portrayed in a, not a good light, but they look cool. They're suave, they have swagger, they have their their principles of living life, you know, the way that they live life and they do things and they deal with things are very concrete, and they have a certain kind of hierarchy and a level of masculinity and a level of, you know, loyalty and all those stuff and betrayal and all those things kind of come together in a way that makes for a very emotionally and, like, you know, emotionally action packed, like, you know, high intensity movie. Whereas this movie was like the complete opposite of that. It flips everything on his shoulders, and we get protagonists that are, they have no idea what they're doing many times, you know. They're kind of lost. They have aspirations and things that they want to do, but they never really,
it's like pure ambition and
they never really get to that point. They aren't able to pull themselves together. They don't know the right things to do or the right things to say, you know, in moments. You know, oftentimes they're fumbling with their words. They don't even, like, you know, they can't even really, like, coherently express what they want to say a lot of times. And it's funny because, like, you know, there's Flatty, who's always with his girlfriend, and the girlfriend's kind of like, you know, a bimbo too in one way, right? Like, she's also, like, kind of just hanging on to these people, and she's just following them wherever they go. Like, you don't see that really in a gangster movie, right? They're kind of separated, right? The men do their thing and the women do their thing, and it's very separated. But here, you know, even Gal has the girlfriend, and she's kind of intertwined in that, and it's a very, like, messy, but also very boring, like, mundane, like, dreary kind of lifestyle that these gangsters live, as opposed to, like, you know, you watch The Godfather and it's like gunfights here and betrayals there, and you know, revenge here, and it's a very, like, concrete way of, like, seeing almost the world.
It's like a novella.
It's really like a book or like a movie, right? Like, you have those, like, big sequences, like these pivotal moments. Whereas in this movie, you're like, where is the pivotal moment, bro? I'm trying to figure out what the movie is about.
Where's the spice?
Yeah,
like,
I'm confused, even, like, when, you know, when there is something happening. It's like, why did this happen? Or, like, what are they doing? Like, what's the point of this, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, having said all that, you know, watching this movie, to be honest, for me, it was a very hard watch. Like, it took me a while. Like, the first half, I was like falling asleep. And then, like, I woke up again, and I, like, rewatched parts of it. And then I was, like, refreshing my mind. I'm like, oh, right. Okay, so what's going on? Like, what is this? Who's who?
You know what's really funny is that, like, I did the same thing, but as I'm, like, refreshing to, like, okay, wait, what just happened, to, like, go on, you realize that, like, what I'm refreshing doesn't really matter by like what's next, you know? Like, there's no pieces that are important for something that happens later.
Yeah.
Up until, like, the final kind of act, right? But before that, it's like, so scattered.
So that's I think one of the things when you're watching a movie with subtitles is a lot of times it's really hard to figure out who's who really quickly. And I think the benefit of, like, a genre movie or like a, you know, like a gangster genre movie, it's very easy to figure out who the protagonist is. You know, like, these genre movies, like, the conventions of a genre help you, like, get into the story much faster. Whereas, like, a non-conventional or, like, a non-genre movie, or like a movie like this where it kind of flips everything of a genre and just, like, it kind of becomes no genre, right? It takes a while for you to invest yourself into the movie and invest yourself into the characters, and I think this movie for sure took a while. Like, in the very beginning, like, it sets you up with Gal, right, in the train, and he's, like, on the phone and everything, and he gets off the train. But, like, these characters, you're not really, like, with them in the same sense that you would be with, like, Michael Corleone in The Godfather, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that same subjectivity in this movie.
Right.
And so you're like looking for different things to engage you.
Right.
And that takes a while, especially when you're so, as, just traditional movies, like conventional movie, you're so ingrained with the fact, like, you're always sticking with the protagonist, or like, that's a very like subjective like bond that you have with the protagonist, where you really don't get that too much in this movie.
Yeah.
Whereas like even in like The Assassin or Millennium Mambo, you had a certain sense of that more, right?
Yeah.
That conventional like protagonist, or like conventional
Right.
like subjectivity with a character.
Yeah.
But this one, you really you get it more by the end of it, but like in the beginning and everything, you're not really sure like who's who.
Yeah.
Like there's characters that come in and out, and you're kind of confused. Okay, I mean, I'm with Gao a lot, but like, what's that? What does that mean? Who is Flatty? Right? You're like trying to get to know these characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, bottom line, I think this movie really takes some time to digest.
100%. Yeah, it's the notion of like holding hands, right? Like you said, a lot of times it's when you watch a movie, you're always attached to somebody or something, right? Like you have a protagonist that's leading the charge of you're going on their adventure or something, and inevitably, like you're gonna get that with every movie, and eventually you get to that point in this movie, but it just takes a while because it's like not blatantly given to you, and there's like I said, there's a lot of characters and a lot of like scenarios and a lot of things that go on. It's hard to like find your footing and hard to know who to follow. It's funny. It's like, yeah, I see Gao a lot, but what exactly is happening?
Yeah, like, you're not really given too much to like even care about him in one sense, right?
Yeah.
Like there's not much that causes our sympathy for him, right?
Yeah. And I think a big thing too is like you like watching it like a beat by beat and a scene by scene. You're never like you're rarely like see him in a frame by himself, right? Like a lot of times he's in his apartment. He lives together with Flatty, like his brother and like his girlfriend, and sometimes he's with Ying as well. And so the fact that we never get like alone time with him and that he's always like with somebody or like a group of people also kind of disassociates with that, right? Like you know who to follow.
I think one thing that was kind of interesting in this movie though was like the shift in perspective. I don't know if it's a shift necessarily, but like when we are put in the subjective like view of a certain character, like for example, there's like that moment when Flatty is like, I think in the restaurant or whatever, and he's like serving people, but like you get that like orange shade on the camera, right?
For, like,
and then like the music, going on, and then like he's like the camera's like walking towards the table and it's like he's serving, and then like we go out and we realize that it's actually Flatty who's serving. Like stuff like that, or like their moment. I think the girlfriend, I think it was Ying, but I'm not sure, but the girlfriend's like sitting in the bed with the globe or whatever. And then like you see it and you realize that it's actually the girlfriend, and we're in her perspective. So like there's like moments like that where we're given a character's perspective, but they don't really. It's not like it's not something that like adds to the internal like idea of the character. Right. It's just kind of like a moment. Like
it's a cool shot.
Well, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'm like still trying to figure out what that really would mean in that context.
But even like towards the end, like when Gao and Flatty are driving together, and you're like in the first person like driving view, like you're in the driver's seat, like as Gao, right? As you're watching like Flatty go in and out, and like hey, go to the store, like I'm looking for that guy, you know, and then like then it pulls out to be like, oh, like you're Gao, and then he goes to see him.
Exactly. So yeah, those like moments of like subjective like views that the audience gets a hold of. I'm not really sure what to make of it. I think that because like a lot of times when movies use that, it's to put ourselves in their shoes, but it's in a moment where there's like a really like heightened like moment, right? Or like if there's
Exactly.
something that would really be important if we were really directly in their shoes, and we have those kinds of shots in it.
Yeah.
But a lot of times in this movie, it's like he uses that when like I'm like,
I'm surfing.
what am I even like, like what? Why am I in their shoes right now?
Yeah.
But I think one reason that he might have done that, like going back to the examples that I mentioned and even your example, is kind of the aspect of like how mundane like these like moments are.
Sure.
Like, like him having to serve these people in a restaurant. Like I'm sure like Flatty doesn't really like care to be doing that, but he's doing that regardless.
Yeah.
Like he has his shades on.
Clearly he doesn't in that scene either.
Right. He has his shades on. He has his headphones on, and he's like, whatever. Like I don't really care. Like he tells the girl to like get the soda like 50 times.
Yeah.
Wait,
the guests are telling him like, yeah, can we have this or can we have a soda? And he immediately like yells for somebody else to do it. You know?
Like that care, like that sense of like I really don't want to be here, like that, like I'm bored with this life, like I.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what he is trying to portray with these subjective moments.
Right.
Even with the girl, like she's on the bed and like that like sense of like being in this environment with Gao and all of that and like the mess of a place that she's in, maybe it's trying to show. And even like the car thing, it's like, he's looking in and out and he's looking at his brother, but like all of these like the mess that he is and the trouble that he's getting into that Gao has to deal with and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So maybe it's to kind of highlight those moments. So it's a very like opposite way of using it in one sense. Like a lot of times other movies use it to like for these like really like
it's like desperation.
Right. Heightened moments, where here it's to highlight those boring like mundane moments.
Right. Look how boring this is.
Yeah, like like just how like dreary like a life of a gangster is in Taiwan kind of thing. Like
right.
It's not like glamorous. It's not action packed. It's a lot of times just waiting or eating food. There's so many moments of them just like eating,
not doing anything.
Not doing anything, but just like
complaining.
Complaining, eating food. Like they're just like riding on their motorcycles to go somewhere, and after they're there, they're just waiting again, and they're just getting food because they're hungry. And there's so many moments of them. It's just it just shows their backs, and they're just eating, right?
Yeah.
And there's that like great moment when Gao is like feeding the dogs.
Oh yeah.
And then the girl's like kicking the dog. She's like, you eat so much.
Get out of here, desperate dog. Oh man. Yeah, it really is just like a lot of that for the most part. It is like that, and that's just kind of the detriment of the movie, and it's comparison to like Millennium Mambo and The Assassin, and like all of his movies are slow, right? Like there is the Hou Hsiao-hsien like quality to the movies, right? That we've talked about it, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, like the fact that he has a slower pacing in his storytelling is not at all like a negativity to how he tells stories, right? But there was always like something to attach to. There was always like some kind of story in there, or there was something else like in The Assassin, like very like basic minimal story and like not a lot to pull from there, but it was one hell of a pretty film, right? So there's always like kind of something that's offsetting. Millennium Mambo kind of has like, it's like that eternality, like interesting characters, right? And just a really neat way of like presenting narrative. And in this movie, it's lacking like all those things, and there's not like a neat sort of, I don't want to say gimmick, but there's not like a unique style or anything that like kind of offsets sort of what you could overlook in this movie.
Well, like my question would be like, what is the director trying to show, right?
Right,
Or, like,
right.
what is the director trying to portray through the movie? And I think that part of it might be just the
Being a gangster sucks.
yeah. I mean, simply put,
Yeah.
probably something like that along those lines,
Yeah.
like being a gangster or like a low life gangster who wants to, who has like these,
Yeah.
big aspirations.
Yeah.
Like there's always like, it's not all like easy and it's not like
It's not flashy.
flashy. Like they do stupid stuff to get money. Like
Yeah. It's very scrappy.
yeah,
It's very like,
and they have all these like get rich quick kind of things that they're trying to do.
Yep.
But like a lot of times it fails, or like other
Yeah.
people scrape off the top, and like they end up with not much. And he has a brother who always like causing trouble, and
Yeah.
and like even at the end of the movie, they're driving and they fall into a ditch, and it's like that's the end of
That's
the
literally
movie.
the end of the movie.
And yeah, like he's showing kind of the inevitability of the dreariness of being a gangster.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of those, it's like, it's really like, it's straight up like realism, right?
Right.
It's straight up realism in that lifestyle.
Yeah, like there's more moments of waiting and just like killing time
Right.
than there is like actual action.
Yeah.
And whenever there is action, you're like, it's kind of like in the background,
Yeah.
not in the foreground, right? And
It's something that's like talked about, or
Right.
like something that it's in the sphere, but
yeah, but like there's rarely moments when you're actually in that action, right?
yeah.
It's always about somebody else who's getting,
yeah.
in the action, or like even when there is action, it's when you're getting beat up like Flatty, right?
Yeah.
With his cousin and stuff. Like it's not pretty. It's not like there's nothing to really show for it.
Yeah.
I think like that's what he kind of wanted to show through this movie,
Right. And I think it's like, clearly, if we're complaining about it, you're doing a good job.
It does
about
that,
it.
right? But the thing is, like, it's clear this movie is clearly not a commercial movie, like in any stretch, right?
You're selling a message pretty hard. Right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything is kind of supporting that. And two, I think like what you said earlier, which I really liked, was in comparison to the other two movies that we saw, like so there is a lot more freedom of just like camera movement and like shot choice, and that you feel that there's like a restriction in the other movies. It's very simple, like it's very like he's placing a camera somewhere very specific, and he's just letting the action do its thing.
Mm.
And then here there's movement a lot more often, and there's like a variety of different sort of shots and things, but it has like a home video quality to it, right? Like it has kind of I guess just like a scrappy sort of feeling to it, it doesn't
like
feel very
almost like run and gun style of
Exactly.
filmmaking, where you put the camera like at this moment and you're capturing it almost.
Mm-hmm. And like those first person shots, like kind of that POV kind of supports that, right? Like it is very kind of like ugly, like very mundane. It's very like shaky.
There's a lot of like shots of like when being on the train, and the train is like going through the different areas, or like we talked about the biking scene.
The biking, yep.
Where like they're following the bikes up the trail.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are a lot of movement in that regard.
Yeah.
Of like tracking shots and stuff like that.
Well, a lot of it's funny because like all of those shots are just showing like killing time, right?
Right.
There's a lot of like that 5-minute long bike scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's just them like going into the town, right?
Yeah. Well, like even a lot of the shots where you like see cars like going through, like, but it's like pitch black. You only see the back
the taillights.
And like it's like going through. And,
Yep.
it takes a while, and you're like, was this really needed for the movie? Like that's what I thought a lot in this movie, because I was like, even a lot of the train like winding through shots.
Yep.
I'm like, it looks pretty cool, but like,
Why
how
am I
long
watching
is this and why do we need it? Kind of, in my like,
Yeah.
critical brain, I'm like, okay, did we really need that for like a good like 40 seconds? Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, it adds something though, right? It does
Sure.
definitely add something to the movie. I'm trying to like think about it. Like, imagine if those things were not in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it would drastically change what the movie would be.
Sure.
And so
It would feel a lot more montagey, maybe. Right.
I think it gives a moment of like reprieve.
Sure.
Like when you're watching those shots,
Yeah.
it kind of puts you in that moment of like contemplating, almost like meditating on what I just saw before, and like I'm trying to figure out, like, it's like that moment where like you're trying to like chew on the food, and those moments are like the moments he's giving you to try to chew on what he just showed you, and you're like, I don't know, man, this is hard to digest, bro.
It's like they come up with like that scheme where I forgot what happens before that, but basically Gao's whole thing is like his biggest ambition is he wants to like fulfill his father's dream of opening a restaurant in Shanghai, right?
Yeah.
And he has like a small time restaurant with his dad in Tapai, and that's the same scene where like Flatty and like his girlfriend are like just like bullshitting around serving guests. I love when he's like, "Can I have a Pepsi?" and they get a Sprite, and she's like, "I don't want that anymore."
So you don't have Coke.
Yeah, sorry. And then like basically like Gao is like henchman or whatever, I guess, like coming to the restaurant after hours, and they're like talking about like this new scheme with the pigs that happened, right? And they're sitting there like, talking about that, and it's like, oh, there's something I can kind of get behind and watch. And then it like cuts to like them actually trying to like talk to I don't know if they're like the landowners or like the pig owners or something.
Yeah.
But they're like trying to cut a deal with one of the involvements of it. And so it's like, okay, like the pig thing is sort of happening in real time. And then we get a shot of like the truck coming in with the pigs, and they're being like unloaded onto the farm. And then we just cut to
That's
like
it.
a club
Yeah.
with Gao like
Talking about it.
Yeah. Like a little bit, like not even, because then he goes into like the karaoke dancing room, and they're like, and they're like dancing and taking shots.
Yeah.
And then he's like throwing up in in his apartment, and he's like regretting life.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And then the pig is forgotten. The pigs are just forgotten.
That's the thing. Like, the setup is like, oh, this pig thing is gonna be the big like thing, right?
Yeah. This is gonna make us
Big
money.
big part of the plot, and
Right.
then you get to the end of it, and it's a lot of like just talking. But I think that's kind of genius, because like I'm imagining myself like being part of a gang or whatever, or being part of this operation.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to be the one who's actually delivering all of the pigs or like, making that happen. It's just kind of like I'm the one like
I'm facilitating it
and stuff. And so like it's kind of more real that I'm in a bar or a club like kind of like telling people, okay, we got this done.
Yeah.
Than the fact that like I'm actually
in the trenches.
I'm in the trenches seeing all these things happen, right? So it is more real in that sense, and I think that's kind of genius to show like even like something like this that seems like a big scheme and like all elaborate or whatever.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like it's kind of like, okay, it's done.
Yeah.
And there's not much to it. It's
On to
not
the
as,
next.
right, and it wasn't really like that, crazy of a thing.
Right.
And it's not glamorous. I mean,
Obviously
also
not.
it's like pigs, right? It's like
Yeah.
the least glamorous thing you can find that they're doing. And so like in that sense, like it really like portrays that like scrappy, like ugly, like not fun, like mundane, boring kind of lifestyle of these gangsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like, okay, onto that scene. I don't know. I think the translations were like okay for the movie. for the most part. Like it gave you like I definitely got the idea of like what's going on.
Yeah.
But I think it would definitely hurt is like the details parts of everything.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask like, particularly for this movie, it feels like even if there were good like subtitles or like translations for the movies, so much of the movie just is like these like little things that kind of don't add up to anything, and it's like unimportant that the details don't matter.
Yeah.
But like, how much would have that kind of elevated the
Right,
movie?
right. Like a lot of times when you're watching a movie, a lot of the things that happen compound on each other.
Yeah.
Which make it so that even if you missed a little part of it, like you can still understand the bigger picture because it's like support, like everything that happened in the very first half of the movie.
Yeah.
There's like a payoff at the end, right?
Right.
But this movie, it doesn't work in that conventional way.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if you're missing something in the beginning, you just miss it. Like you don't even know like what that is about. And so like every little moment that you miss is like another like fragment of the movie that you just it's just gone.
I'm not getting back.
Like, yeah, you're not getting. Yeah, like you just have no understanding of it. And there's no like, there's no anchor point for which to like come back to.
Right.
And usually that's like the character, right?
Yeah.
And so like that is the thing, but since like the movie is made up in that way, this movie, that's why I think that's why it's hard to like really like invest and like get like closely like understood with the movie. Even like you said, my subtitles wasn't that bad either. But there were moments when like they're talking, but they don't have subtitles. So I wasn't sure if that's just like
side talk,
or whatever. Yeah, but that was the case from my subtitles. So, yeah, but
yeah, I don't know. Like I think it would have, like even though like some of those plot points don't like come back or something, like it would have helped kind of more being engaged with like what's happening at the time of watching it. Like because I share the same sentiment where it's like it's kind of hard to stay engaged with the movie. Like the whole pig thing, like I get a general idea of like, oh, this is sort of like a new proposition and like I don't know, scam or scheme, whatever they're doing. But I don't understand how it's working. Like something about studs and like we got to call them studs, but we only tell that we call it to the studs to like this group of people, and it's just like,
and then like the government's involved.
Yeah. there's a myriad of participants and like such, and they're doing it a very specific way. But it's like the details and like the schematics of it are pretty much blank to me because it's not being translated too well to me. And so I don't understand the details, but in general, but maybe I would have been more invested of like, okay, I kind of really understand what's going on. Similar to before that, I think with the Flighty's girlfriend or something, that she was getting into trouble because like she got into like she took on a huge debt or something, right? For being with somebody, and like basically kind of did it behind everybody's back, and like basically dug herself into a hole. And Gal just like raged on her, and like that was a whole like mini episode, which also didn't come back. But it was like, again, the same thing of like I couldn't understand like what exactly happened, and like, you know, like what did she do exactly wrong, or like, you know, how much exactly was it, and it kind of like left out sort of some important details and just like the graveness of that situation, right? But I understood like the generality of like. Right. Oh, this person kind of fucked up.
Hey, it kind of makes you realize how much of like a voyeuristic like view that we have when we watch movies, that when we can't understand things, we're kind of annoyed, right? Because if you think about it, like in real life, when there is some kind of situation going on like that, and I'm like a third party watching it. Obviously I won't have a full like understanding or clue of what's going on, right?
Right.
And that's kind of like what this movie is showing us. Like there are things happening there that are quite like there are important points there that are kind of important to these people.
It's impactful for them.
And it's very impactful for them. But like as a third party watching that, you're kind of like, okay, so what's going on, right? And that's how we usually are when we're watching something. But because of the way that we've been watching a lot of these conventional movies, we're so like voyeuristic in the sense that like we know everything about the character and their problems and you know their interests and their motives and the problems that are arising within their life.
Yeah.
That when we watch a movie like this one, we're kind of like,
Give me the tea.
yeah.
Give me the
We
tea.
just kind of like can't get into it because we're like,
we're too left out.
yeah, we're left out, and that's an interesting thing I think that this movie is doing, in terms of like comparing, conventional style of movies and something like this.
I mean, especially like I think that's like the biggest thing for me with like after watching Millennium Mambo, because it was exactly that complete opposite. Like we got her like, we got narration that didn't exist within the time frame of the movie. Like we get even more information about it.
Yeah.
And we just know sort of everything about her life and the specific scenes and episodes that she went through. Like we're so connected with that main character, right? We're so like in like literally in her headspace and like that reflection. And then in comparison to this, it's the complete opposite. Like it's very fly on the wall, we're just sort of watching these people live and fail and such. But was there, what about talking about the second half, I would say, or like just like the third, right? I think eventually things kind of like come up to a halt, which is the Flatty incident, right? Which is kind of the only thread that I was able to kind of pull, which went the longest. And even that kind of took like a little bit to put together, because there was like the bike ride, and basically like Flatty was went back to where he grew up, I guess, like his hometown, and we was trying to collect money or money that what's
like
that
his
called? Shares,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Of the operation or whatever that they did.
Right. Well, it was inheritance. That's what I was saying. I'm pretty sure it was inheritance money from his parents or something. I don't know. Well, maybe not parents, but like his family. But basically, like everybody in his family got some kind of shares, so I assume it was inheritance. So he went back to town, and he was like talking to his brother, and basically he got mixed up. Like, I'm pretty sure he like cut himself away from his family, from what I could gather, and people were like assumed that he didn't want his share of the inheritance.
Yeah.
Even though he kind of did. I guess he needed the money now for some reason. That was the other reason. I was like, why did he go back? I never understood. And then we still kind of gather like he sees his brother, and his brother just tells him like, we gave that money away to the church essentially, to like and like for another reason. And he's like, but you can talk to like their
some
uncle,
kind of donation,
some kind of donation, right? For like, because their parents passed away, so it's kind of like to kind of for spiritual matters essentially. So he wants to go talk to their uncle, who his uncle apparently like managed the money, and then his uncle was like, no, you can talk to my son, his cousin, who manages all the family affairs. And it turns out that the cousin is like cop, right? And basically knowing that like Flatty's sort of like the black sheep of the family and like is turned into a thug, like beats him and arrests him on the spot while trying to do that. And then that opens
he's
up.
also like a crooked cop too. He's not like
It's pretty fucked up. But that essentially turns everything into a situation, because Flatty's like, I'm gonna get him back and I'm gonna shoot him in the face.
Trying to get guns.
Yeah, and then they go on like a little operation of like he's trying to get guns, like pay them back, and then like that gets up subverted because it's kind of like leading to this thing, and then they get captured by some Goonies, and then you like end up in like this back room like discussion between like the leader of the gang. So I guess it goes like there's Gao who's with Flatty, but above Gao is C.
Yeah, like I think it's like kind of like the gang leader or whatever.
Right.
And then there's also like, so he was like, the gang leader goes to that club or whatever, like to meet the senator or whatever dude
of the town,
of the town or whatever, to like be like, can you like
cut a deal
like, so you can free Flatty and
so they like in real time make like agreement, right?
Yeah.
Like off bookies sort of thing.
And
then that's kind of it.
Yeah, which
I think was really interesting. I liked that whole arc, like that whole situation went down. It was very like subverting. And I mean, personally, that was like probably the most interesting part of the movie for sure.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. And then you have Gao and the Flatty in the car.
Yeah. And they like chuck the keys in the middle of the night.
Who chucks the keys?
one of the guys. I think the guy. So the guy like takes the car from them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whoever was driving it,
and then they throw the keys into the darkness.
Yeah, into the field.
And they try to find it.
Yeah. So that was cool. I didn't expect for it to go down like that, but I think that was a really cool way of telling that part of it, right? But yeah, then it just kind of like ends, right? Like it's like,
yeah,
well, it really puts you like, yeah, we're just some low bodies, some low.
Yeah, I think this movie is better when you talk with somebody about it.
Sure.
You know, like just watching it on your own, you can get stuff, but I think when you're talking it out and trying to unpack it with somebody, you find more of what it's trying to do or what it's trying to be.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like one of those movies that's more enjoyable when you have somebody to talk to about.
Because you can unpack it and
right,
and at
like,
least try to make up a reason to why it was good.
right. Whereas like, you know, other movies, they're kind of more intrinsically like just fun to watch.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
But
kind of like Parasite or like Princess Mononoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I do commend the fact that he's not afraid to do unconventional things and tell stories that are very off the beaten path.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I mean, it takes a lot to do that, right? Because I'm sure like he also understands like this is not going to be a movie that's going to make a lot of money, or like it's not going to be like financially successful, right?
Yeah.
But still having the
grit.
the belief, the belief to and his own like, you know, principles and sticking by them to make a movie that he wants to make, I think is very commendable. And it's really not an easy thing to do, you know?
Yeah.
Especially when there are like a lot of people involved and there's, you know, money and stuff involved. It's not something that like, you know, it's something that you can just easily be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do whatever that I want, right? Like it's not, it doesn't work that way. Like the world doesn't work that way. And so like him still being able to create something that he feels is, you know, what he wants to make is quite I think something to learn from.
Yeah. He definitely like takes it a long way, but even impressively that the importance of having like your team, right? Like he consistently works with you know,
same people.
Cinematographer, like the writer, like he has a core group of collaborators that he works with that believe like him as a filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't, you know, doing movies on this scale, like you can't do it on your own. Like it's impossible. It is like a team effort, but it makes a world of difference to do it with collaborators and people that you can trust and trust you to like
fight for your vision, you know.
Yeah,
people
exactly.
who are willing to fight for your vision.
Yeah.
And so that's a really great point that you made. Yeah, like he's able to do that because he has people like that around him.
Right. So,
but also he does make good movies.
Yeah, you know what I mean? He does. Like, of course.
Like that is one thing though. He
he's got a track record. You know, like he's got a resume.
You know, if they weren't good, even in the unconventional sense, like, you know.
Yeah, but like, you know, if I was to like pitch, like if I was to pitch this movie, you know, like I'm just, even if I was a good director, but like all I am is a director, like, yeah, I want to make my next movie is about like boring gangsters. You know, we're just gonna like tell the story of like their mundane like life and they suck at what they do and they're never gonna go anywhere. Like even like kind of the
premise of it.
Yeah, it's like for me, you want me on board to help it. It's like, that sounds dumb. Like where's the fun in making something like that, you know? So like even like thinking about it that way, like it's so impressive to have people to trust and like be able to support that and like really do it right and like really do it like to the capacity as well as they can.
And I mean, it works.
It works.
It
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
It works for sure.
Like he gets it done.
Yeah.
So
There's one thing that like when I watch Hou Hsiao-hsien's movies is like the visual like translation into the way that we feel about things is like super like
yeah.
clear. Like the clarity of that is really like a lot of times like because like it takes a while for us to see an image and create meaning from that image.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a skill in itself, right? Like having images and having those images create some kind of meaning and anticipating the meaning that would come out of putting images together, right?
Yeah.
And having the understanding to be able to create those images that will create a certain kind of meaning is not an easy thing, right? And then that's a really hard thing to do. But like,
Yeah.
I think that he really is like very aware of the ways that people will kind of take a certain image and understand it and digest it in a way that would make sense to the vision that he has.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's not always like that. And, you know, people get, you know, meaning from things and interpret things differently, obviously.
Sure.
But even like putting the images together in a way that will create something that sparks an interest or like sparks a valuable or like a valuable meaning, like something that isn't just like, oh yeah, it just is for what it is, right?
Right.
Like I'm just using a dolly shot for the sake of using a dolly shot. Like that could be the case, but like you clearly tell that there are like purpose. Yeah, there is like a meaning in the way that he's doing things, and he is trying to use those things to create a certain kind of meaning.
Yeah. Right.
And that's really like commendable, and to see that in his movies, like a lot of the movies that you watch in that of him of his movies, like that you can get that sense is really, really like, you know, like there's a reason why he's like great.
Why he is
what
where
he
he
does.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the movie like the Edward Yang movie that we watched, like he's really good at that too.
Mm.
And I mean I think that is basically the core thing that all great directors are able to do, right?
Yeah. Which is like, I mean, that's kind of, it's like what film is, right? Like, it is a visual medium.
It's the essential core of what a film does.
Right.
And obviously, if you're good at that, then you're a good filmmaker.
You're a good filmmaker.
Right. But I just wanted to like elaborate on that.
Right.
In terms of his movies, because like if we're taking like Parasite, for example, it's a very like easy to digest in a certain sense movie.
Sure.
Clearly more than this movie. but they're basically essentially applying the same concepts, but in a completely different like avenue of you know, or story, and the way that they're telling the story is completely different, but still the core like essence of like creating meaning through the images is there.
Yeah.
And so that's what I wanted to just say. Yeah, and that he's good at it. You know what I mean?
He's good at it.
And
I promise.
And it's not easy to do because
no.
in one sense it's like intuitive, but it's on another sense it's a very technical thing that you got to do.
Yeah.
So
like as a filmmaker, like putting like, you know, the practical hat on, it's like it's such a, I think more than anything, it's like such a disciplined thing to do. Like you have to have a very good discipline to do that, because like, you know, when creating something, how often than not do you like start shooting, or like when from like planning and like progress to even just like on the day and like shooting, that you just like have constant ideas and like, I want to use this dolly shot for this thing. Like, how cool would that be if I could just do that, you know? But it's like, that's not being disciplined, you know, because you're like taking away, like, I'm just doing it because it would look great to do it that way, not for like, what is this actually accomplishing?
Adding to the story. How is it like adding to the story? But yeah, like there's also like the sense of like when you're telling the story, or like there's so many times when you want to just like make something out like I don't know how to explain it exactly, but like for example, like when you're trying to light something or like create something, like oh yeah, so this is what I was gonna say. Like
Yeah.
a lot of times, like we kind of try to take the easy way of doing things, or like the way that we've always known to do things. Like so, for example, like if we're lighting a scene, like a lot of times we think, oh yeah, we can just light it like a 3-point, 3-point lighting. Just have a key, a fill, a backlight. Like
Good to go.
But yeah, like the easiest way of like lighting things and just like figuring out the technical stuff and just being like, yeah, this is how we're gonna do it. It's just most conventional, most easiest like way of doing it.
Yeah.
and like that doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna be beneficial to the story, right? And for example, I was watching this movie, right? And a lot of times, like I'm thinking like, how did they light this? Like what did they use? Like what were the what were they? How did they light it? Like the thought process of lighting these scenes. And a lot of times, like characters are in the dark, like you're not seeing other characters. Like, even the blocking is like you see the backs like half the time, and like it takes like a confidence in what you want to do,
right,
to be like, this is fine. This is how I want it. And sometimes, like it's like a thing where there's certain people who don't understand the basics of filmmaking.
Yeah.
And just with their ego, they do that, and that's bad.
Right.
But I think when you like have a solid understanding of filmmaking,
right,
and you have these moments of like, I want to do this because of this, and this.
Yeah.
Then it's good. And I think even then though, like your first instinct is like, let's do the easiest thing possible.
Yeah.
And to pull away from that and to pursue the things that might make it a little bit harder but still like relevant.
Yeah.
And serving your story is like a mark of a good director.
Right. Well, it's the classic understanding of like when writing a screenplay, you have to understand the rules to break the rules,
Yeah.
So it goes back to that kind of concept, right? It's like, oh yeah, there's only one way to write a screenplay, or like, but really there's kind of not. Like if you read a screenplay from many directors, like they always are written differently. They have a different tone. They sound differently, but you kind of have to understand like the technicals, the rules, in order to subvert those.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like certain, like I watched like some of the scenes in the movie, and I'm like, oh, like I'm like that shot could probably have been like, you could have added a light here or like a thing here and made it a little more like beautiful, right? Sure. But like, does it really like add to the story? Is like the big thing, I think.
Yeah.
That's
why I think it's so like maybe one of the most important things is having a central idea. Like you do need, like we even talked about too, there's always an anchor point somewhere.
Yeah.
Like and that goes to like also when making something, like you have to have, I think, an anchor point when you do anything to go back to, and everything that you do has to support one thing.
Yeah.
And so like that goes back to, if there's a core theme or message or idea that has to be, consistent with the entire movie, then everything that you do has to lead back into
like it felt like he used a lot of natural lighting in this movie, and and just like even just like whatever he had available, and he might have maybe added, I'm sure he did add some extra light, but
sure.
A lot of times I think it was very like natural light and available light that he had, that he utilized in creating the shots and the story. Which is, in a story like this, I think is the right call, right?
Yeah.
Because especially like, you're not shooting a movie that's like a sci-fi or like something that kind of feels very otherworldly. Like it's a very mundane, very grounded, just like everyday kind of thing.
You don't want anything to stand out.
Right. Right. And then I think that really, even in terms of like the technical like cinematography aspect of it.
Right.
Yeah.
It supports that.
Yeah.
I was like laughing earlier because I was like, it takes balls to like do things that are opposite of like, the easy way, like technicals, or it's show it like the way that they're blocking and showing back. So it's like, because you're always gonna have a Lee on set. That's like, why do you want to do that? It's like, why is that right?
Right. Well, like it's just like the natural instinct that we have to want to see faces, right?
Oh yeah.
Exactly. Like the whole scene of
like, is this low quality or
the whole scene of Flatty, when he's up there talking about his shares, and then the cousin coming, and then like them having a brawl, all of that, like we have him in the front, and by the end it's just in the back, and just like instinctually you're like, oh, I want to get in the action and have that
the excitement is always there, it's right there,
and all of that, like, and you sometimes have to like reel yourself back in and be like, what is the core of the movie that I'm trying to do, and all that stuff. So yeah.
Overall, what do you think of the movie now that you've gotten it off your chest?
I think it's still third. It's not because like it's a bad movie, but I think just in terms of like my personal preference, I like the assassin a lot. Okay?
Yo, he's simping out here.
I just it's such a beautiful movie though, like that.
It is really
the assassin,
pretty.
like it's just like the compositional like aspect of that movie is like top tier.
Yeah.
But this movie, like I said, I think talking about it made me like it more.
Yeah.
There are other movies where talking about it made me hate it more. But yeah, for sure, I think it's something that, like we said, like there are certain movies that even though they're not commercially viable, that it's I'm really glad that there are people who make movies like that, and this is, I think, one of them.
Yeah,
I'm really glad that a movie like this exists, and that we can enjoy it for what it is.
And if there's anybody that could have made it, glad it was Hou Hsiao-hsien.
Right. I mean, I don't think I would have the thought to even create something like this,
Yeah,
so.
true. Me neither. I'd be like, why would anybody want to see that? Right. But I think that's what's most impressive. Like, I don't think he ever thinks about like, why would anybody want to see that? Like, he just kind of comes up with something that he wants to do, and
I think
runs
if he
with
wants
it,
to make it, right?
Yeah.
I think there's like a quote like from Scorsese's like, I always, when I make a movie, I'm making it like I'm the audience for that movie.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good way to move about things.
That's a bold thing to do. But yeah, I feel the same way. I think like on personal level, but also in terms of like engagement, like the other ones are just more engaging stuff. I even think about like, it feels like in pacing and stuff, like it feels a lot more like A Time to Live and A Time to Die, right?
This one?
Yeah. But that one is just such a better movie.
Yeah, I think even Time to Live and Time to Die, I think had a more like cohesiveness to it.
Sure.
And maybe I just like the story more too, but
Right, yeah. But
maybe it's like this is tackling boredom,
sure.
And you're like
it's about kind of right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I like it has to be boring.
You can't make boring exciting. Then it wouldn't be boring anymore. True. Right. Okay, right.
Yeah, I mean that's my interpretation of the movie, so I don't know. But
yeah. You tell us what you think in the comments. Was it boring?
But I definitely don't want to be a Taiwanese gangster for sure.
Oh, nah. I want to be a restaurant owner in Shanghai.
Like when I watch Godfather, I kind of want to be like that kind of gangster. That kind of looks cool,
Yeah.
But this,
not
I'm
this
gangster.
No,
not really. I pass.
I think I'm gonna go be a Yakuza instead. Right?
Exactly.
Those guys look way cooler.
Exactly. Beat Takeshi.
Yeah, exactly.
Sonatin.
Bro, they go on vacation all the time. They have the best life.
And then with a big shebang,
Yeah. They shoot out once in a while,
Yeah.
but living on the beach most of the time.
What was that
Great.
assassin movie that you watched? The gangster, something dragon maybe. I forget.
Which one? Something.
Uh,
It was about an assassin.
yeah. It was like a hitman. He was like a Yakuza hitman.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the name of the movie though. We watched it. It's part of the I think the Yakuza. Do we do a Yakuza series?
I don't think we've done a
Some
Yakuza
kind of like
series. Some
action series. I think it was maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I was thinking was like the Donnie Yen one where he was like fat.
No, but it was I think part of that.
It's part of that one.
Yeah, it was I don't remember. It's a Japanese one where like he like he's like a hitman. He's like trying to like go into like one of the groups and basically like off people.
That's what a hitman does.
Typical hitman stuff, man. I don't know what it was called. I forget what it was called.
Off people.
My memory is so bad. Yeah.
I'm thinking of like the Fable, but
Yes.
Oh, is
the
that one?
Fable.
no, he was a hitman retired though.
But he's doing he's offing people, right? At the
No,
end.
but he didn't kill anybody. That was his thing.
Well, isn't his like last mission to do that? Anyways, I think that's the Fable that I was talking. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Good movie. Highly recommend.
the Fable, yes, that's
Fable.
the name.
Yeah. Is it Fable?
I was like dragon.
Yeah, that's
You know why?
where'd you get dragon from?
You're talking about Yakuza, and I'm thinking about the Yakuza games, and then
like a
like a dragon. That's why I was like thinking about dragon.
You were way off.
Yeah, the Fable. Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, so next week, coming pretty close to a close, but we're moving further back with A City of Sadness, released in 1989. That'll be the next movie. So, yeah, I definitely seen that one available, so we can definitely watch it. But we will have to figure out what will be the last movie.
Yeah, what do you want to do for that?
I'm not sure. We'll probably have to discuss, find out. So, whatever's available, really. But yeah, but before we get there, we'll watch this City of Sadness for next
Do
week.
a good man and a good woman.
Oh yeah.
Is that there's I think it's called like the City of the Old Gods or something like that.
Oh yeah.
There's a few. There's there's a lot. There's
Yeah, there's a
the
lot of
Flower of Shanghai. Or something like that.
Right. I don't know if I found that one though.
Yeah, there's a few.
We'll figure it out. But yeah, on that we will see you next week for City of Sadness. Peace.